Hi everyone, Logan Hertz here with Hazeltine LLC. I wanted to respond to a comment I got recently on one of my videos that was pretty interesting and brought up some themes around retirement accounts, mutual funds, whole life insurance. It shows yet again how what's so important are our unstated presuppositions. Oftentimes we talk about this product versus that product and this strategy versus that other financial strategy. But really, we end up talking past each other because if you have a different fundamental philosophical framework, a different fundamental way of thinking about money and finance, that's really where the issue is. And we have to verbalize these unstated assumptions and see if they make sense. And there are people out there who just are working within a different philosophical framework than me, and that's fine. So we're always going to talk past each other. We're probably never going to line up except in some ways. But the problem isn't that this product is better than that product. It's that this person has a different financial philosophy, a different financial framework than this other person. And the challenge is most people have a philosophical framework, but it's not one they've ever really thought through. It's just one they've gotten by osmosis from being in the world and receiving a lot of the conventional wisdom through various means. Let's take a look at this comment. These comments came on our Peter Nelson presentation on turning forever taxable money into never taxable money. It's one strategy among many of strategically repositioning funds you have in a retirement account into whole life insurance. And there are multiple ways of doing this. I'll probably end up doing a whole series on this subject because this is a frequently asked question, which is, Logan, I have this money in a retirement account. And the more I learn, the more I think maybe I shouldn't have that money there. Is there a way I can strategically reposition it? And yes, there are. And that's why I partner with people like Peter, who are securities licensed, who can help advise you on the investment in that retirement account. And there are lots of different options, but there's going to be a cost associated with any moves that we make. There might be taxes, fees, penalties. And we just need to decide, is the pain worth the gain? And in many cases it is, in some cases it's not. It depends on you. But so in this example, we were taking someone who's over the age of 59 and a half, and they have money in a retirement account, and we're repositioning it into whole life insurance, and we're using an annuity to fund the whole life insurance policy and pay taxes. And you can watch the video to learn more about that. The specific strategy is not as important to this comment. But the comment first says, RJGI2HF says, converting to Roth will also be never taxable money. This is one that I've never understood. When I talk about whole life insurance and people bring up Roth as an alternative, to me, those are two so completely different, it's not even worth comparing. They're completely different universes. Someone who jumps straight to Roth is just so locked in the Wall Street paradigm that you cannot shake them out of it. The only similarity I can see between a Roth IRA and a whole life insurance policy that matters is maybe in terms of the taxation. And even that's not entirely true, which is that you, generally speaking, contribute to a Roth IRA on a post-tax basis, and then all the gains are not taxed. And with the whole life insurance, that's sort of true. You contribute to whole life insurance on a post-tax basis, and then the gains are not taxed. But one is clearly in the Wall Street jail. Roth IRA is squarely in the Wall Street jail. Maybe it's taxed a little more favorably than a traditional IRA. Okay, I'll grant that. But you're still in the Wall Street casino. You're still putting your money into a vehicle where you really don't have ownership and control over it. And Wall Street and their government partners are setting all the rules around it. And typically the money that's there is actually invested in risk-on assets, whereas whole life insurance is guaranteed. And to say that the two are taxed the same is not actually true, because in whole life insurance, I can take out policy loans without paying taxes and continually borrow against that asset while it keeps growing for me. Plus it has a leveraged debt benefit. I just don't understand why people think of these two as being similar. They're really not, which gets back to the financial framework you're working in. If you're in the Wall Street framework, you're thinking, I'm putting my money into some vehicle, lock it up in a jail, and hope that it goes up at a certain rate. and the jail that you use might be different. All you're doing in this case is saying, do a Roth conversion. So if you have money in a traditional IRA, convert it into a Roth. So you'll pay the taxes on it one time, and then all the future gains will be tax-free. Well, that could be a huge tax bill if you do that Roth conversion, even if you do it piecemeal. Whereas because of the annuity usage, I think there's a better way to manage taxes. But even if I grant that, again, the financial philosophy behind putting money in a Roth is completely different from the financial philosophy behind becoming my own banker and regaining control over my capital. Money in a Roth is money I had no control over. And in fact, typically it's not money, it's some assets you might have. So this is one where we really just talk past each other because I just don't understand how you could compare a Roth to whole life insurance. I just don't understand. There's really no similarities between the two in terms of the framework behind them. Now, yeah, if I look at individual little components of them, sure. That's like saying this house has a door and that house has a door. Therefore, they're the same, right? Like the Roth IRA, future gains are not taxed. And in the whole life insurance policy, future gains are not taxed. Therefore, they're the same. And again, focusing on the individual product misses, let's back up and what is the financial framework you're working in? Because you can do both. Some people might be comfortable putting money into a retirement account and they might want whole life insurance also because it can still give you some benefits. But then we got this other interesting comment from Mattress Money Investing, which thank you for commenting. I appreciate it. He says, my Roth IRA is self-directed. It has $0 invested in Wall Street, 100% in small to medium private businesses and commodities. In this case study, the subject is over 59.5, so the IRA rules primarily prohibit investment in collectibles, life insurance, and self-dealing. Whole life restricts my investments to bonds, or I could take a policy loan, invest in something else, and pay taxes on the gains. The real cliffhanger is what happened to the other $2.6 million. That still sounds like potential for painful RMDs. Maybe Nelson sold them a QLAC too. That would leave about $2.4 million. This is such a bizarre reply. We're just talking past each other because I really, really don't understand why anyone would bring up a Roth. But he says, my Roth IRA is self-directed. So let me start. I'll do the proverbial sandwich, which is you start with something positive, then you go into where you disagree, and then you end with something positive. So I'm going to try and do that because, first of all, Mr. Mattress Money, thank you for the comment. I appreciate that. And thank you for doing the research and taking control of your finances. It looks like you got a strategy that you're happy with, and that's great to see. That it is self-directed. So clearly you are willing to do your own work and do your own research. And I think really you and I just have a different financial philosophy. It's hard for me to criticize anything that you're doing. I certainly don't know the investments that you're in. It sounds like you've done the research and you're happy with them. So good for you. It just seems like we have a different financial philosophy. So you say your Roth IRA is self-directed. Good. I've done the same thing in the past, back when I was employed as a W-2 employee and I got a generous match from my employer. I took advantage of that. I invested in a self-directed IRA. It wasn't Roth. I don't know if Roth was even an option. It was just a self-directed 401k. And then you say it has $0 invested in Wall Street. Well, I don't know what planet you're living on, but if you're in a retirement account, you're 100% invested in Wall Street. It does not matter what you are invested in. The vehicle you're using is a Wall Street vehicle. And this is the thing I don't understand, where people will take good assets and try and find ways to shoehorn them into the Wall Street jail so that every piece of investing means I just log into my Fidelity account and I click on the investment that I want to invest in. And that's the only way we think of investing. And if that's the way you think of investing, then you're always going to be subject to the Wall Street prison. They're the ones who write the rules. They're the ones who come up with the ownership structure, which means that you really don't own anything. So I don't care what asset you think you're investing in. If it's in a retirement account, you are in a Wall Street jail. And your Wall Street masters and their government goons set the rules around that. Now, don't get me wrong. I personally have used retirement accounts. If you want to use retirement accounts, that's fine. They can be part of a balanced, comprehensive strategy. And let me give Mr. Mattress Money credit. He's clearly thought it through. Because while I'm not against retirement accounts, I am against what many people do, which is just mindlessly putting their money into retirement accounts without even really thinking about what they're doing. And I meet so many people, whether they have financial advisors or not, and they have no clue what's going on in their retirement account. All they know is there's some money going there and hopefully it's going up in value. So this guy clearly does know what he's doing. So I think if you know what you're doing and you implement a strategy that you believe in, you're probably going to be successful. So I think you, Mr. Mattress Money Investing, are the exception to the rule. So I think you're probably going to be successful with it. But when you say it has $0 invested in Wall Street, no, 100% of it is invested in Wall Street. You say 100% in small and medium private businesses and commodities. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think the ultimate investment is. The vehicle you're using is a Wall Street owned vehicle. So when you say commodities, I don't know what commodities you're investing in, but congratulations on being willing to invest outside of the typical investments, because commodities are not what people typically invest in. So as an example, let's say you're buying gold and silver. I don't know what commodities you're buying, but let's just say as an example, you're buying gold and silver. If you really want to get yourself outside of the Wall Street matrix, you buy gold in such a way that you directly have physical ownership of it. And if you buy GLD as an example, you're just buying a Wall Street derivative. All that's doing is getting you exposure to the dollar price action in GLD, which GLD is not the same as the price of gold. If you want to go and actually get physical gold, go to your local coin shop and try and buy gold. And then you'll find out what gold actually costs. And it's more than what GLD costs, because GLD really doesn't get you direct ownership to physical gold. They might claim they do. So you don't really own commodities because of the vehicle in which you're holding. So again, I don't understand why people want to take these assets that are outside of the Wall Street matrix and find a way to shoehorn them back into the Wall Street matrix so that I now give up all control. I can just click a button on my mouse and be done with it. If that's your idea of investing, then you're always going to be easy fodder for Wall Street to take advantage of. You've got to be willing to go through the inconvenience, the pain of doing something different, which means not clicking on a different fund in your retirement account. No, it means thinking outside of that. Starting a business. If you want to buy gold, then go and directly buy physical gold that's held outside the banking system so you have direct ownership of it. Because what gold is doing for you then is it's acting as an insurance policy. Because if there are problems in the financial markets, you're going to be caught up in those problems because you're in a retirement account. It doesn't matter if you have commodities. You're going to be caught up in those and you might end up holding the bag and having nothing. Even if you invested in the correct asset, let's say you're buying gold, and you're doing it as an insurance policy, and then there's a financial collapse, you're going to find out you don't really own any gold. And you're going to be stuck with everybody else. Whereas people who actually got out of the matrix went and bought physical gold and had direct ownership. Same thing with small to medium private businesses. Why don't you actually get direct ownership? There's a problem with the ownership structure. So when you say it has $0 invested in Wall Street, I think that's a pretty naive view. I don't know where you get that. I don't even know how you could think that. It's just feeding intellectual laziness, financial laziness. Everybody wants to invest in these great assets, but they won't do it until it's something they can just click on in their Fidelity account. Well, if you wait until it's something you can click on in your Fidelity account, you've already missed the best part of it. You want to get in early before it's available in your Fidelity account. And now you're giving control over Wall Street. So I've got news for you, Mr. Mattress Money. I don't care what the ultimate investment is. You have 100% of your money with Wall Street because it's in a Roth IRA, which is controlled by Wall Street and the government. And I bet if you dig under the surface and look at these commodities that you think you own, what you're actually maybe doing is investing in futures or options, or you probably don't actually own anything. As I've talked about before, most of these assets are held in what's called street name, which means you don't own it. Your custodian, Fidelity, they actually own it. If you want to get outside of the Wall Street matrix, then get out of a retirement. And if you want to be inside the Wall Street matrix, then you don't need to be buying commodities in small to medium private businesses. Just buy the S&P 500. So again, to me, we're just talking past each other, right? And let me be clear. I'm not saying your strategy cannot work. Let's be clear on that. It certainly could work. No question about it. I'm not saying it cannot work. I'm just saying that you are still well within the Wall Street prison. So he's saying in this case study, the subject is over 59 and a half. So the IRA rules primarily prohibit investment in collectibles, life insurance, and self-dealing. I don't know where you're getting this from. You can hold life insurance in an IRA. Pretty sure you can hold collectibles. I don't know what self-dealing is. So yeah, you can definitely hold whole life insurance inside of a retirement account. What you're saying is false, demonstrably. I don't typically recommend it. There's some use cases where it might make sense, but you can definitely hold life insurance in retirement accounts. I don't know what rules you're pointing to, but you're pointing out exactly what I'm saying. Who's setting the rules, Mr. Mattress Money? Who's setting the rules? You're in a Roth IRA. You are not setting the rules. Somebody else is. Who's that somebody else? Somebody you trust? Right. Who has control? Who has control? So no, Roth IRA and whole life insurance are in completely different universes. And there's very little that they have in common. And again, it goes back to your financial framework. Your financial framework is everything has to be stuffed into the Wall Street prison. So anything I want to invest in, it has to be clickable in my Fidelity account or I'm not even going to consider it. So again, if you really want to invest in commodities, then invest in commodities. Don't use a Roth IRA. Go out and directly buy gold, directly buy silver, so you have it in your direct ownership and control. Don't take what's an asset outside of the Wall Street cartel and then park it right back in their prison. At best, you might be getting exposure to some of the price action in those commodities and medium and small private businesses, but you don't really have direct ownership, and Wall Street is setting all the rules. You're saying whole life restricts my investment to bonds. Well, that's an absurd statement. Whole life is not an investment. I guess what you're saying is that the life insurance companies themselves invest in bonds. Okay, but you're not investing in bonds. So no, whole life insurance is life insurance. It's not an investment. It's based on actuarial science. Actuarial science, the science of predicting mortality in large groups of people. Some of these companies have done successfully for over 100 years. And when you say whole life restricts my investments, no, it's not a restriction. Once you understand what the purpose of whole life insurance, the purpose of whole life insurance is not to invest and get the highest rate of return. That's what Wall Street teaches you to do, which you clearly have been brainwashed into believing. So no, whole life insurance is amazing at what it's meant to do, but it's not an investment. So no, whole life insurance does not restrict your investment to bonds. And then it says, or I can take a policy loan. True, you can borrow against your policy and take a policy loan, invest in something else and pay taxes on the gains. Yeah, you could do that. You could borrow against your policy and invest in something. Depending on what you're investing in, you might pay taxes on the gains. But again, this just shows your framework is so locked in. Gains, why are you investing for capital gains? What about cash flow? We should be investing for cash flow, not capital gains. If you're investing for capital gains, you are speculating. And it's okay to speculate, okay? Everything in your Roth IRA is speculating on the price of those commodities, speculating on the price of those small to medium private businesses. You're not collecting cash flow, or if you are, it's in a vehicle where it's severely restricted. So when you say restricted, an IRA, a retirement account is restricted. Whole life is not restricted. It opens up your liquidity access and control. And by the way, if you take on a policy loan against that whole life insurance policy, invest in something else, guess what? The interest you pay on that policy loan is now tax deductible. So there's a tax benefit to that. This is why a lot of people will use whole life insurance policy loans to go do hard money lending. That can be a great use case. And then they can deduct from their taxes the interest they're paying on the policy loan. So he says the real cliffhanger is what happened to the other $2.6 million. Well, nothing. It just stayed in the retirement account. You can't annuitize everything. Well, you could, but the life insurance company would have suitability that would actually restrict. What Peter clearly said is he didn't take the full $4.5 million. They took $1.9 million. And that's what they used to roll over into the annuity, which then paid the taxes and paid the life insurance premiums. So the remaining $2.6 million simply remained in the retirement. That's all that happened. So he'll have the best of both worlds. He'll still have money in that retirement account, which he can use however he wants. He says that still sounds like potential for painful RMDs. Yeah, I'll grant you that one. Could be for sure. I don't know the details of that particular case, so Peter could probably explain to you why they did it that way. There could be reasons, but RMDs on 2.6 million is a lot less painful than RMDs on 4.5 million. Maybe Nelson sold them a HELOC too, he said. Well, it's interesting when people throw out acronyms like this, HELOC. What they're really trying to do is just show, hey, look at all my knowledge. You know, I know what a HELOC is. You don't know what a HELOC is, do you? QLAC. I'm not even going to go into that, but when people throw out an acronym like that, it's funny. They're just trying to showcase their knowledge. But again, let me end with positive. So thank you for your comment. I'm actually not disagreeing with your strategy, your self-directed Roth IRA. It sounds like you've actually put in the thought, the research, you're invested in the things that you actually believe in. So I think you're probably going to be successful and your strategy can clearly work. It's just that you and I, we have a different philosophical framework. We have a different philosophical framework. You are playing by the Wall Street rules, optimizing it, and you can be successful doing that, and you're doing a good job of it. So I can't really argue with what you're doing. I don't know all of it, but I'm sure it's doing well, and I'm sure it's fine. It probably will work out for you because you clearly are doing the research, taking control of your finances, and staying informed. So I appreciate what you're doing. I hope you're going to be successful. I think you will. It's just that I have a different financial philosophy, financial framework. And so we'll just end up talking past each other. We can talk about HELOCs and Roth IRAs and self-directed and commodities and small to medium private businesses. And we'll just go back and forth all day and not reach any resolution because we're just talking about products rather than backing up and talking about what is your philosophical framework. And I don't know if you've ever really thought through what yours is, but clearly it's very different from mine. So thank you for your comment. I just think that other than in a very narrow sense, looking at some of the tax treatment, I don't see how Roth IRAs and whole life insurance are really similar. But thank you for your comment. I appreciate it.